Hi, I'm Liza Palmer. Welcome to the Strategic Authorpreneur podcast, where today we're talking about social media and how to thread it into a writing life.
Hey there, strategic authorpreneurs. I'm Crystal Hunt.
And I'm Michela Mitrani. We are here to help you save time, money, and energy as you level up your writing career.
Welcome to episode number 8 of the Strategic Authorpreneur podcast. On today's show, we're going to tackle what I find to be one of my favorite and also most challenging aspects of the publishing process, which is connecting with readers via social media. So we're going to talk a bit about best practices and things that you can do and avoid in social media, but we have a very special guest who is Liza Palmer, who is going to be joining us to talk about that. But first, we're going to give you a little update about what we've been up to since we were last here with you. So, what have we been doing in our author lives? Michele?
We have been doing a lot of things, my dear. I just wanted to just say I'm super excited of the upcoming interview with Liza, because I do believe there is so much content. It's flipping with the value all over. So I'm very looking forward to comment on that. Otherwise, and others life-wise, I've been actually concentrating a lot on the getting to understand how the subscriber side of things work for our authors. As you might remember, I'm kind of starting out on that phase, so I figure after reading so many things about subscribers and how to get them, how to organically try to interest as much people as possible to your works and as to you as an author. So in the last few days, I started reading a lot of resources about that particular subject, how to build up your newsletter, which is actually the most probably important asset you can do medium to long term for your author career. And this time I'm trying to do it the right way. And bear with me, there isn't really a right way. There is just the way that works for you, as every single thing that we discuss. So I started researching, and I stumbled on a couple of resources that I want to talk about, that I think they can add a lot of value if you are at the beginner stage, but also if maybe you are on a medium side of things. So you have already a subscriber list, but you don't know exactly how to use it 100%. One of the resources that I found is by a gentleman called Nicholas Eric. He speaks a lot about productivity, book marketing, and he actually wrote a couple of guide. One was recently published, like I believe a month ago, the book marketing guide. And in one of these works, Nicholas speaks a lot about how to develop your own audience. I do believe what it says to be interesting, not only for people that are starting out, but also for people that are trying to manage their newsletter list better. So definitely, I will invite you to check what Nicholas Eric has to say about productivity, but also how to use this productivity to make sure that you are setting up a newsletter that works for you, basically. And because I'm talking about newsletter, I feel like I cannot not mention a book that I came across a few weeks ago, which I'm just going to show it. And it's a small but very, very, very nice book with a lovely cover. It seems like a, kind of a manga kind of style with the ninja Japanese kind of thing. And is by Pamela Breck. And it's all about how to build a newsletter, how to become, what she says, an author mailing list expert. And I'm already halfway through. And I've learned so much reading this book. And I think I cannot recommend it enough, even though I'm not done yet, Crystal. Crystal was one of the people that suggested me to read this like age ago. And I was like, yeah, but there are like so many other things that I have to read, like 1,000 different books. But because I decided to be very intentional this time on the subscriber things, like this book was like, I think, mentioned to me a billion times. So I was like, okay, take the plunge. You need to read this stuff.
And you need to share the title of that book with our folks who are not watching on YouTube. So what's the book called?
Which is called Newsletter Ninja. Again, by Tammy Labrec. I really hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. And the subtitle is How to Become an Author Mailing List Expert. Again, it's super short, super sweet. It's on the paperback version that I'm holding now. It's 135, 30 something pages. But again, it's filled with stuff that is not only important, it's also evergreen, because there are things that have been, some mailing services can maybe start now and maybe being suspended in the future and stuff like that. But she doesn't focus on the technicalities. She is more like basically willing to share a philosophy. And she's been helping a lot of authors on building newsletters. So I do believe this resource will be super, hyper useful if you are trying to build your newsletter, or if you are trying to maximize what you can get out of the people that are following you. And what have you been up to, Krista?
Well, I am just about to make a pretty big shift. So I'm going to be a full-time creative starting, a couple days before you're all listening to this podcast, actually. So I have been gearing up for making that shift. And I've been rereading a book by Cal Newport called Deep Work, because I'm finding there is an awful lot of extra distractions right at the moment. And, we're dealing with COVID and all of the associated chaos around that. And I had been on a sort of a social media hiatus for quite a while and not really paying attention to a lot of social channels, but I found myself sucked back into it, was trying to keep up to date with what was happening with everything. And so I'm just looking at how do I kind of get that under control again, and how do I stay focused and use some of this time of staying at home to get some work produced, not just sort of panic checking my Twitter feed. So I think that book in particular has some really, really great suggestions and conversations around managing inputs in your life and how you can really focus down into a specific project and what that looks like. So I reread it because I've read it, I think this is the third time actually in the last couple of years. And each time I sort of make a different type of shift. But that one in conjunction with this other book here, which is called How to Take Smart Notes. And I will have trouble with this name. Sanka, maybe? Aaron's, something like that.
Okay.
If you're out there, if you're listening, I'm hoping one day to get her on the podcast. So hopefully she can correct me at that point. But this book is all about how you take notes in a way that helps you to retrieve the information later, and processing the information, not just copying it or underlining it or whatever, but it's actually like a thinking system. And I've been reading a lot of Medium articles about something called a Zettelkasten, which was basically a thinking machine that a philosopher designed a long time ago. I won't talk too much about it right now because we may have a whole episode on that coming up if I can convince the author of that book to come talk to us. But we have, some really interesting stuff that I've been looking at putting into place, so that I'm going to be doing a lot more nonfiction writing. And you can see the shelves behind me, if you're looking at the video, are covered in nonfiction books, which I want to be able to synthesize and process and analyze and share back some thoughts on that in a way that's really easy to understand for everybody, and in a way that gets me thinking about things in a different way as well. So I am balancing fiction and nonfiction writing, and I want to set up good systems for the nonfiction writing, because I'm looking at that as the next sort of 5 to 7 year phase of my career to balance the fiction and nonfiction now that the fiction is up and running. So that is what I have been focused on, trying to focus on how to focus, basically.
Always been busy by default anyways.
Yes, there is no shortage of things to do. So I was really excited to reach out to Liza Palmer, who is an internationally best-selling author of 9 novels, including Conversations with the Fat Girl and Nowhere But Home. She is an Emmy-nominated writer who lives in Los Angeles, and she works for BuzzFeed. And so that's kind of an interesting combination of skills. And I first met Liza at the Surrey International Writers Conference, where she taught all kinds of workshops. I've been to some of her courses, which are fantastic, but she had an entire room of people sobbing after her keynote. And one of the reasons is because Liza is a very real person, which I love. She is open, she is honest about things that are hard to talk about, and she just basically just goes right for the truth of the matter. And so I think in a topic like social media, and there's so much shoulds and change and everything is happening so quickly, I think she's got a really great perspective to share with us about life on the other side of some of the tech and how we could be using some of these things from her day job that she's going to share with us to improve the way we are acting and interacting on the internet with our readers. So without further ado, let's hop on over to the interview, and we will pop back at the end to do a little dissecting of the main ideas and see what we might be able to apply to our own lives for the next week or so. Today, we have Ms. Liza Palmer here, who is author extraordinaire, writer of many things, and also a knower of tech stuff, which is not always an obvious pairing in this particular industry. So, Liza, can you first tell folks listening and watching us out there in the wider world a little bit about who you are and why you're here?
Thank you for having me. My name's Liza. I am in Los Angeles. I have been writing. I sold my first book in 2003. I have 8 novels, standalones, working on 9 now. Written 2 novels for Marvel, the Captain Marvel prequel YA, and the novelization for Infinity War. And I also write for animation. Spider-Man tends to be the one I get put on most. So it's definitely, and I am the supervising writer at BuzzFeed. So it's quite a diverse portfolio.
Yeah. And my personal favorite thing is your history as pop-up maker extraordinaire.
Yes,
because that just hits me right in my youth, right there.
In the youth, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I worked
on
when they brought it back. So I worked on pop-up video. I was I kind of did a lot of the aging diva content. So at that time, I did a lot of Madonna, a lot of Mariah Carey, a lot of Whitney. That was kind of my wheelhouse. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I'm curious, like, do you think that mapped onto a facility for short form stuff? Like, I mean, pop-ups and Twitter really not so far
Very
apart
similar.
when you think about that, right?
It's so interesting. It's actually the place that it actually came up recently was, this is not gonna, every writer's gonna understand this, but no one else will. I write there is a show on the internet called Unsolved. It is basically these 2 men who go and either they find supernatural stuff, like they'll go to the old town jail and there's like ghosts and stuff like that. But another thing that's on that channel, it's a BuzzFeed channel, it's all about true crime and stuff like that, is a series we do called How They Were Caught, where we script out basically how serial killers were caught. And it's actually great because it's like Ted Bundy and all that kind of stuff. Not great, but it's a great angle to take it from. Dark, incredibly dark content, but we have to write them. And what helped me write them was and now the language is, people actually call the text things pops because of me, because it is these runs where it's like, you're not building 50 facts in a row, you're building 5 facts. It's like these little arcs of facts. And that chops it down so that you don't actually have to think about how to write the whole story. You just have to write the story of this and then this and then. And so oddly, the biggest one for one has been pop-up to scripts about serial killers are very similar. So it's very bizarre, but that's how it works, right? That
Yeah,
makes
yeah, that
absolute sense to every
winding,
writer. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
the
It's
winding
a
path.
it's a structure thing because I think it is like how am I structuring this? How am I getting my head around this? And then so you kind of put things together that in no other way should be together. But that's how it came out. Yeah.
Yeah, the perfect writerly activity. So
Exactly. Yeah. Serial killers and Mariah Carey.
yeah, perfect
Yeah.
combo. So one of the things that comes up a lot in talking to writers and that people always have questions about is, okay, social media,
Hmm.
buzz, 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 all of the things. And there's so many platforms and there's
Yep.
so much you could learn or know or do. It's kind of, how much is enough, I guess,
Right.
is kind of an ongoing question. And I know it's not always an area authors are super comfortable playing around in, and it can be kind of loaded depending on your social media personality versus your writerly personality, like if you
Right.
write for kids or adults or whatever. So I feel like there's a lot of interesting areas we can go down in terms of just talking a bit about if authors are trying to make strategic decisions about where they're going with social media, what does that look like? But I know that you have kind of an inside
Hmm.
view into what is going on right now in social media. So not what people are talking about from 5 years ago, but the
No.
actual current situation. So could you maybe share a few of the insights or like interesting tidbits that you think maybe aren't sort of commonly out there in the world at this point so
Yeah,
far?
I think I've been working at BuzzFeed now for 5 years, and I think watching the trends move away from kind of YouTube and more to these kind of more, they're not boutique platforms, but it feels like that, right? Like you get what stores in the mall Instagram is. Like you know what store that is, you know what Facebook is, and as writers, it's basically our job to figure out what those audiences, what each platform says about an audience, correct?
Yeah.
So I think for me, one of the biggest learnings I have, there's two, and one of them was at this social media conference that I went to where this kid, I mean, of course he was like 12 years old and he owned a company for like five, I don't even know. But he basically said that one of the pitfalls of social media or being online at all is something that he called trying to boil the ocean, which is it's it's taking something super broad and basically trying to do everything for everyone. And that's never going to work because you are trying to boil the ocean instead of saying, I'm going to take this bucket of water out of the ocean and then boil that. And piggybacking off that is I bring this up all the time in every meetings. There was a wonderful BuzzFeed writer named Sam Stryker, and he basically said that the best post he ever did, and this is huge numbers, right? Because it's BuzzFeed and all that kind of stuff, was a story that he did about Taylor Swift and how she held her purse. And it was this thing, he was like, why that? Like, I've written everything. But what it was, and it actually piggybacks off the boil the ocean thing, is it was an incredibly specific angle to something that everybody knew. So it was drilling down on something as opposed to having an article about Taylor Swift. It was, I'm going to write about how Taylor Swift holds her purse and why she holds it like that. And it went viral. So I think for us, it's about not trying to boil the ocean. It's about us trying to be incredibly intentional about each platform and whether or not it's for you. Is your audience on that platform? I can state with pretty much clear, none of my audience is on TikTok. I know it. None of my audience. I need to know TikTok because I need to understand what it is for my job, but I don't need to go on TikTok. My audience is not on there. So I think the first question is you need to ask as somebody is, where is my audience? Which social media platform is my audience? And then I think you start there, but you don't need to go and do everything. It's boiling the ocean and you're not going to do it well.
Yeah, for sure. And so I know, just because we have to slip this in here, is what is TikTok? Because a lot of people, that's something that they're like hearing. And a lot of people who
Yeah.
write for younger audiences are like, do I need to be on TikTok? I'm like,
Yeah.
well,
Well, and TikTok is actually very simple. I think it's got a high barrier of entry. I think because it appears so manic. I think it's so fast. Essentially, it's a retread of Vine, which was a platform back in the day where it was just these little 6-second videos. But essentially, it's just Instagram stories. That's all it is. It's just basically, and if you really want to kind of unpack it, it's just silent movies. It's what can you do in 6 seconds, and what can you show and not tell in 6 seconds. That's it. And it's just,
Right.
it's a community of Gen Zers. What works on TikTok is something called purposely unpolished, which means at BuzzFeed, we can't put our shows on there. They don't like that. But if we put a cell phone vlog behind the scenes of a show, that works. So if you're
Right.
trying to put stuff on TikTok, it's unpolished, it's vlogs, it's observations, it's funny stuff, it's commentary, it's your commentary on something. It is not polished at all. It's literally a behind the scenes thing. Most of
Right.
the time.
I mean, it feels like it's more like a conversation you would have with a friend, and it's one
Very much.
ping pong bounce of a conversation. Is
Yep.
like, oh, I heard this funny thing today, and then you tell a little like 2-second clip
Right.
of something or
Right.
whatever. But it's very much it's real, and I think that's an
Yes.
interesting thing when you're talking
Mhm.
about unpolished. It's very
Yeah.
much because right now we're so used to stock photos and everything is perfect, and to the point
Mm-mm.
where a lot of advertisers and a lot of folks making images for social in different places are actually purposely like making a tooth crooked, or they're
Mhm.
actually marking up the stock photos to make sure that they don't look too perfect, because
Right.
people are just not attending to perfect. It's not interesting, right?
No.
Um,
It's that relatable content thing, and I think it's even to the thing with Lady Gaga's video, the Stupid Love one that just came out was shot on. I mean, they say shot on an iPhone, and I think it's the stills from it, but having something be effortlessly that kind of purposely unpolished thing is now kind of a something to be proud of. I think something that
yeah,
you want. Yeah.
which is awesome news for authors, because
Exactly.
I think one of the big barriers to entry for people really feeling comfortable putting themselves out there is like, I don't feel perfect. My book
Right.
doesn't feel perfect. I don't feel like I'm a graphic
My life
designer, and
isn't perfect. Exactly.
I can't make these beautiful things that these, professionals have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases
Exactly.
for, and you
Yeah.
don't need to, is the good
No, you
news,
don't.
right? That
No, you
isn't
don't.
what people are looking for.
Mm-mm.
So
No, it's not.
so besides don't boil the ocean and don't be
Hmm.
perfect, what else is coming out of your learnings from your social conference adventure?
I mean, it's so interesting. I think it's that thing where, and we see it in publishing all the time, where there's this kind of trend chasing that happens all the time. But I think the overall takeaway from what we keep learning over and over again is authenticity is king. That's
Yeah.
like it really is like a little black dress of social media. It's like if you're just yourself, that's going to hit every time. And it's like, because we've all have those authors that we follow that you can see them running through the trends in their social media, and it just doesn't feel organic to them, and it certainly doesn't feel
Mhm.
organic to you as the audience. And I think that's the biggest thing that we have to kind of weigh, which is like, yes, that's a trend, like out there. Is it a trend for your audience? Probably not. I think that's the key to kind of following these trends, which is like, does my audience, do they know this? Would they like this? And then it's almost like, how can I iterate or adapt that trend to my audience? Right? It's like, because I think those questions it's never a one for one ever. It doesn't
Mhm.
work like that. So I think the biggest takeaway is just know your audience and be yourself,
Yeah.
and understand why they're coming to you, why they read your books, how are they engaging with you, that kind of. It really is the intimacy is not with you and the trends, it's with you and your audience, and understanding that relationship instead of kind of the general trends moving, because those are going to keep moving. It's basically
Yeah.
just be yourself and figure out how to serve your audience.
Yeah. So two interesting things there. I think one is, um, in any relationship, if all you do is talk about yourself, that is not a genuine connection with another person. You are not demonstrating that you care about them, or you are interested in knowing what they think, or or want,
Oh.
or what are their hopes and dreams, or, you know, what's going on in their lives. And so if we look at social as that relationship with a reader, not just
Mm-hmm.
here's a platform for me to blast my spammy marketing messages out. And I
Mm-hmm.
think we all get that on an academic level, but I also
Yes.
think we don't always understand what that looks like in terms of,
Right.
you know, you you're not diluting your brand as an author if you share someone else's book. Like,
No.
you know, and so there's this
No.
interesting mindset that some people have about social where it's like, well, you know, they're like, I can't come up with content. It's like, what do you mean? You know, like 100 authors, you know, in your genre.
Right.
Just you could, all you could do is announce when your friends had books out, and you would have
Mm-hmm.
an endless supply of
That's
content.
right.
And if it's in your genre, your readers are then entertained. If they like the books you're recommending, then they
That's
start
right.
to trust you. It's the know, like, trust factor. You're
That's
building a
exactly right.
relationship. So I think
That's
that's
exactly
just
right.
a freeing way for people to think about it, is to take the pressure off. Is you don't have to be a one woman or man show or whatever. You don't have to be a one person show, a one author show.
No.
You can promote other people's. And one of the interesting offshoots of that is, you know, some people are like, well, I'm not promoting other people in my newsletter because my readers have signed up to hear from me. And I'm like, well, yeah, but don't you also want your also bots to be other authors that you want to be associated with? So if
That's right.
you want to switch your brain over to like selfish mode, or what do I get out of doing that nice thing for someone else besides just the good karma points, is you actually get then relevant content for your readers. They're pleased that you have some connection there. You've got something to talk about. You can be like, oh,
Exactly.
who did you love in this book, or how, you know, tell me another book that's like this that you
That's
enjoyed,
exactly
and then
right.
then they send you back content. So that's just an interesting way to kind of twist that around.
Well, I think it's also that 360 view, right? Which is like, it is that thing, which is like, what is your audience coming to you for? They like how you tell stories, right? And it's a taste thing, but it's also that it, and I don't know anybody more amazing than somebody who's trying to be excited about a book they loved. I really don't. Like, I love it. I mean, we always, we go to the same conference every year together, and I swear, like, when I leave there, I have this list of books that people are excited about, and I love it. So I don't, it's just like life. I mean, I think that is the thing. I think social media has been a bit um shifted, but it is really like life. It should be you talking to your friends, you talking to your audience is exactly the same. If there's a book that you love, tell people about it. I personally don't talk about things that I don't like, simply because that's not it's not something that interests me. I don't want to. I like talking. I like lifting and signal boosting more than kind of shitting on. So I think but that's a personal choice that I made. But why wouldn't you want to yell from the rooftops about a book that you loved? I think I don't think there's anything more magnetic than that. I really don't.
Yeah. And I mean, our mamas weren't wrong. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Like, there is
It's just not
there,
interesting.
and it really is just your opinion on a
It
thing. It
is.
is not the truth of that thing. And so
Right.
let the
No.
people who are relating to it go off and relate to it and do their thing, and you just focus on bringing in more of what you want, for sure.
Exactly.
And I
Exactly.
think something that you said when we were talking about the conference originally was one of those messages that, you know, as content makers, we are not the heroes of the story. We are the
Mhm.
help. So
Yeah.
let's unpack that a little bit, because I think that's a really interesting point of view for folks to have.
Because I think it's almost like it's I think the first thing you have to do is actually kind of audit how you are a user of that platform. And I'll speak to Instagram because it's kind of my favorite platform that I'm on. I think it's like, I look at the follows that I really, really enjoy, and I'll give you a few. There's a woman called Elizabeth Mincilli. She wrote a book called The Italian Table. Her entire feed is just her walking around Italy eating amazing stuff. And it literally is, oh my God. The other people that I love following is a man named Rene Redzepi, he was the guy who opened up the restaurant in Copenhagen called Noma. And it's this amazing restaurant that I went to last summer, and basically what I go to them for is I want that version of myself, right? Like, I want that expanded version of myself, and they are the help trying to get me to see myself as somebody who wanders around Italy, standing at a bar and drinking a coffee that's definitely too bitter for me, but I'm like, maybe one day. And Rene Redzepi is, he does Noma, but for the last 3 months, him and his family have been doing this like amazing global tasting. So they're in the Yucatan right now, and he's eating mango, and like he's putting lime on it and chili powder. And it's like your mouth is just and it is that expanded version of myself that he is helping me see. So I'm the hero of his content, not him. He's just helping me see myself in this kind of expanded way. And I think if we start seeing our content like that, which is like, the first thing you have to do is figure out who your audience. That's everything that BuzzFeed does. We are 100% focused on the audience. So first of all, it's who does your audience want to be? And that's another thing that you can actually really look at in your characters. What characters are they engaging with? Who do they love? Why do they love them? Is it because that character does and says the things that they want to do? Then that's what they're trying to look for in your content as well. And I think that's the shift, which is if you start thinking about your content about being about your audience instead of you, that one pivot is going to change everything.
Yeah. And I think one of the blocks people have a lot that they mention is that, when you get in this bubble where you know other authors and that's mostly who you're surrounded by, our daily life is not interesting because it's what we do every day, right? We get that familiarity breeds contempt, whatever the phrase is that's what happens is we wake up and we write stuff and we read things and we talk to other authors and we go to book launches and that is our life, which, we forget how awesome that is, and that not everyone has that access and not everybody writes books and not everybody lives in their imagination with a whole bunch of people that they created.
Right.
And, so the things we take for granted are the things that are actually quite interesting. Maybe other people want to live in that imaginary world with us. Maybe they want to live in the author world with us. They don't just want perfect bookstagram stacks of completed books. They want to know, like, how did it get to be like that, right? Like, if you're somebody looking in from the outside, you need to know, how do I get from here to there? Because here to there is too far to jump. We know that. But like, there's got to be 50 hops, like you were saying before, that pattern.
Pops,
like, where are the smaller arcs? And if you don't let people in to see that, you don't have any way to bring them along with you or for them to really understand you. And as an author, like, if people are a little bit in the process with you, they're also going to be a lot more understanding if something happens and you're like, this story is not ready to be in the world yet. Like, it needs a little bit more time to cook. You can do that, right? Like, there's also, it's a relationship. You have built a relationship with your readers and you have some flexibility in how that looks and how that works.
But I think it's also kind of drilling down onto why you followed that person in the first place, right? So it's like, and if you look at Elizabeth Mincilli and Rene Redzepi, they're actually a very good example of. Elizabeth Mincilli wrote a book called The Italian Table. That's why people are coming to her. Right. So her feed is all about Italy, right? It's all about exactly it's an extension of her work, right? And there is some stuff about all this other stuff, but the primary goal is, I like this thing, and now you're giving me more of that thing. And it's the same thing with Rene Redzepi. I went to Noma and was like, oh my God, this is like, what is happening here? This person who started this is a genius. And then his feed is like, here's a behind the scenes of my genius, essentially. Like, you wanted to know more about what goes into making Noma Noma? Here is me tasting this mango. This is how I see it. Here is me sitting at a sushi counter that nobody can get into, and I got access. It's that thing that you were talking about, which is that behind the scenes access of this incredible journey as this thing that you get to do. But I do think it's like, what is it that your audience wants from you? And I think it's like the scavenger hunt is looking at your work, right? Which is like, what do they like about what you do, right? If I followed Rene Redzepi and he was like, here, let me talk about all the, here, let me talk about, I don't know. I even like the examples I'm having, like woodworking. I'm like, I would watch Rene Redzepi do woodworking. Like, it's like, that doesn't work, but I do think it's like making sure to understand why your audience followed you in the first place. and then understanding what content stands on the shoulders of what made them click follow in the first place, I think is the biggest example.
So if we look at like a couple different tones or approaches you could take, let's say, we can use me as an example. So small town, series romance, right? It's contemporary fiction. The people actually mostly don't care about me at all. They want to know about what's going on in the town and the characters they've got attached to and everything else. And so if it is a reader focused social platform, it isn't even really about me connecting with them at all. It's not about what's going on in my life. There's like you said, there's snippets of that, but really they want town gossip. They want recipes the characters used in the book. They want to know like what's coming, whose story do they get next, and
I also
didn't make it in there. Like, so there's that neat mixture, I think, of just shifting the gaze a little bit.
But I think it's also, they like how you tell a story. They like your observations. They like your commentaries. Like if you were at a Starbucks and you were positive the two people behind you were on their first date, I would want you to live tweet that, right?
Right.
Because it's how you tell a story, right? Because it's also like, even in your own life, it's not necessarily look at all this cool shit I have. It's look at how I observe the world because you like how I sit around a campfire and tell a story. So it is that. Because I think for me, I was like, because it's like you said, writers sit at desks and it's not interesting, right? What is interesting is our ability to tell a story. That's what's interesting. So every opportunity that you can find to tell a story. So that's why, like, my mom has this crazy dog and he's this little French bulldog. And I was like, I don't have anything interesting in my life. It's not, it's like me and my commute. I'll talk about podcasts, whatever it is, but it's like, essentially, I was like, if people like how I turn a phrase, then let me take a picture of this dog and put some funny words underneath them. Like, it was like stuff like that, where it was me thinking why people follow me. And if they follow me because I'm funny or I tell a story, then that's the content I'm going to give them,
Right.
Smattering with me at a book launch because that's my access, right? Like that's also me as an expert, as a book writer. And so it's like trying to figure out, and I think everybody who's kind of studied social media in every way understands that there's kind of what they talk about is that you have these kind of pillars, right? Which is like, if you look at your social media, you have pillars of like, I think mine would be like, oddly, like architecture and renovation, which is something that I think I've started doing. Access, meaning my world in Los Angeles and book people. And then what else? Like maybe like dog pick. I mean, it's like, what can you count on as like appointment television on my feed? And what are it's like, I think it is that thing, which is like when you turn on HGTV, they have these pillars of content. And I think if you look at your own social media as almost a network, what are you offering as far as like, these are the 4 things you're going to get on here, I think
cocktails. All the cocktails.
Not for nothing, I would watch that. Like, it's the same, like, right? Like, because it's the same thing. Like Elizabeth Minchilli, she's like, here's my daily coffee thing. And then she did these stories where she actually made coffee the Italian way. And I was like, oh my God, it was like it was the perfect expansion of her daily coffee photo. And then like every morning she starts and she puts a photo of Rome and she puts the date in the corner every morning. And it's like, it's been incredible. And not for nothing, like during all the kind of the challenges right now with Italy, I know that I can get a certain piece of information from this person who was boots on the ground, who actually like earned my respect and knowing that she could tell me the truth about what's happening in Italy right now. So it does expand beyond just these kind of first forays into why I'm following somebody.
Yeah. And I think something else that's interesting is that, you're not just following other authors. And I think that's a trap that a lot of people fall into is, you get on social media, you connect with all these other authors, but then you're in this feedback loop and you're not connecting over areas of interest in other ways. Like if you're looking to expand your network, not just talk to people who are into the same thing as you in the same way as you and have this like closed loop. That's like the kids in high school standing in a closed circle in the hallway talking about something they all love. For me, I was a band geek, so it could have been band, could have been student council. We were huddled in the hallway for safety, right? Which is has its place, but this is not it. Like, if your goal
No.
is to connect with your readers have all kinds of different interests, and really you want to be connected to people who are super passionate and excited about whatever it is they're into, because you're going to learn from them, you're going to connect with them in different ways, you're going to see how they are connecting with people, you're going to just broaden your social horizons in a way that I think opens up
Exactly.
opportunities for
You're going to see it done well, and you're going to see it, and you're going to see, it doesn't matter. Like, two of my favorite follows is this couple in, I believe they're in the Lakes District in England. It's a guy named Adam Pritchett, and his partner is Matt something, but it's AJ Pritchett and Fawn Lorne are their two. AJ Pritchett is a sewer, and Fawn Lorne is he makes art and little sculpty figurines, and together it's hypnotic. It's like all you do, and they have these little photos of just them like doing the thing. And then I know every Sunday they go on a crazy walk. Like, I'm like, and I know that every Sunday I'm going to get walk content of like them in the mid-lake moors, and like all like why are you walking in the snow like that? I don't even know. And like, and it's something where it's like, it's so organic and so authentic to them, and this is their life, and they're makers, and watching them kind of navigate social media and show their, quite frankly, very small life, it feels big because it's like these huge walks and their art and how they're it's wonderful. And they're not, I ordered something from AJ Pritchett. I ordered this beautiful thing. You should be following people of other races, other cultures, everything. It's fun, it's like having your feed. I think that's another thing. Like, I've been thinking about a lot, because I think the thing that people forget about social media is that social media should be boosting your human experience too. Meaning, because I think for me especially, on Twitter started taking more than it was giving for me. And I've been trying to take a step back from it, simply because it became a symbiotic, unhealthy relationship of me trying to get out of writing and me just scrolling aimlessly and getting madder and madder and doing all that kind of stuff. So I think there is this other element where, yes, social media should boost you, and this is where you're going to find your community, and this is where you're going to connect with readers. But you're also a human being who should be following people that makes you happy. And also, it should be not taking away from your time and energy, and so that you're not writing. It shouldn't be this kind of zero-sum game of, this thing that I started to boost my writing is now taking the time and energy that I should be using writing. And so I do think having that and turning your feed into something that you totally enjoy, and stop following the writer that makes you feel bad. Stop following the writer that you're envious of, and every single time they post something, it sends you into a rage blackout. It's like, stop. And I know that there are people that you have to follow. Mute them. I went on a muting binge. I got to tell, and I'm so happy for it. It's like, I get that you can't unfollow certain people just because of politics or whatever it is that you met at a conference, and now you're like, I don't want to make it weird. But you can mute them, and you can also just, like, I log out of Twitter every single time I go on. So there's a barrier of entry that if I'm mindlessly scrolling, I can't barrier of entry that. Like, I can't just go on Twitter. And I put it, all of our stuff is two-step verification. So I have to like enter in a code and all that kind of stuff. It's just hard enough that I don't do it. So I think all that stuff is about social media should be giving to your writing and not taking away. And I think that's also a big factor.
Yeah, for sure. So about 2.5 years ago, I read Deep Work by Cal Newport. Ooh. And have you not read that yet?
No, I'm writing it down right now.
Oh,
yeah.
My word. Okay. So yeah, it is. You can see it's this yellow one right behind me. For those of you listening, I am now holding up a copy of the book. This is, well, you can see I have a number of stickies, and I scribbled the heck out of the insides as I do. But yeah, so one of the things he talks about is doing a digital fast, basically, or a digital cleanse. Yeah. And so I had not really been writing, and I had got sucked into this social media space, and I was connecting with people and all of these things, and it was great, except that I wasn't writing anything. And I decided I was going to do the 40 by 40 challenge, which was insane, but also meant I needed to basically not have television, kill Netflix, and I could
What's
not
the 40
have,
for? I don't know that.
Oh, my 40 by 40 was, I wanted to have 40 books published by my 40th birthday.
Oh my,
Um,
Crystal.
yeah, well,
That's amazing and
yeah, there were
terrifying.
supposed to be a lot of short stories, and I have a lot of kids books already. Like, I was starting from like 25 or whatever.
Yes,
So I had a bit of a
as you
head
do.
start.
Yeah,
But
you
still,
would. Yeah.
it was fairly insane. So I was like, well, I need to figure out like how to focus basically, and I need to get this social media thing under control. And what he said was like, you just kill everything for 30 days. You pin a post and you say like, hey guys, I'm on a little bit of a focus binge here for 30 days. And I'll see you at the end of
Yep.
that maybe.
Yep.
And so you shut everything down. And so you don't delete your accounts. You can just leave them
No.
paused and log out of them. I removed all social from my phone. I
Me
removed
too.
my email from my phone.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and because I was like, I usually can't properly answer an email from my phone
You're so right.
anyway. And then you have to go back to it, which if you subscribe to the whole getting things done, David Allen, philosophy, you touch it once. You touch it, you deal with it, you file it, you whatever. That's another interesting
What's
book.
the David out? What's that one?
Getting Things Done by David Allen. So
See, this is the thing. This is actually a thing that I think should be a pillar of your social media. You know so much about this stuff that I actually think that if you had a day where you were like, here's my book of the week, I would be I would be
I'm about to
I would just
have
be eating
that,
that. Are you
actually.
see?
I am. Yes. Yeah. So I think it's stuff like that too. And it's those organic conversations with other people in your life who know smart stuff because,
That's right.
cool people are out there. You got to just see, like, see what comes back to you. And if you're not sure what your pillars are, ask a friend or five,
Absolutely.
or put a post. Like if you're on Instagram, post on Instagram and just say, what are my pillars?
That's
Scroll
right.
back through your feed. What is it?
Well, and I think one of the biggest kind of learning I've had at BuzzFeed actually is that the currency of success is not views or clicks, it's engagement and watch retention. Which is, so if you're looking at the Instagram post that got the most likes, that's actually not the most currency. The your best Instagram post should be the one that got the most comments, because that means that your audience is engaging with you, and that's actually a much more a bigger signal than of anything than just somebody clicking like. It takes a lot more to kind of comment on it and engage. The trophy is shares, right? It's like, because what that says is, this speaks to me and this, I relate to this, and this, it's the ultimate, this is so me. And so if you're creating content that people share, that means they're looking at it as an extension of identity, which is actually the real currency. So I think when you are doing that audit of what your pillars are, it's not what got the most likes, it's what got the most engagement.
Yeah. So something else to think about here is what there's a big shift in sort of SEO for bloggers, for content creators of all kinds. There's so much noise out there that there's an interesting shift towards quality over quantity. So
Yeah.
in terms of blog posts, like a lot of people are actually cleaning out all of their blog histories. We went through this phase of like everything is like 300 words and you need to post
100%.
every single day and 5 times. And I feel like we're really shifting away from that. So
Agreed.
I don't know if you can talk a little bit about whatever relevant stuff came up over the last little while for that. Like, what do you see? How could we authors put that to work for us in a good way?
I mean, I think the first example is one that actually was at that social media conference that Lego did this thing where on their website, if you go to Lego, they have actually, based on, cookies and all this kind of stuff, they know their audience well enough that essentially, and it's the same thing that another, I think Everlane, another clothing company does, which is like, they know what you've ordered. And so it's not about whether or not everything is in stock. It's whether or not those black pants that you keep buying is in stock. So they give you already a honed down version of these are actually the 20 things that you're probably going to like anyway. And if you come to Lego and I give you literally all of the Legos, you're going to turn off because it's too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it is that thing. It's once again that boil the ocean. You can't boil the ocean with, I have a website. I have this. Here's all this content. It's like, no, for me, I did the same thing you did. I deleted my blog. I went through and deleted all of my tweets. I think I only have like 100 tweets total, and I've been on Twitter since 2009. I actually go through, and Donald Glover actually started doing this on Instagram, where he actually cleans his entire grid of Instagram quarterly. and starts new. And I do think a lot of that is very true. It's because if you go back, a lot of your tweets are actually, they're not like scandalous or anything like that. They're just incredibly relational to what's happening at the time and are no longer, it is kind of a sell by date where it kind of went a little rotten in the sense of, I don't know what this is about anymore. So I went to tweet delete and I actually deleted thousands of Twitter, and it wasn't, and you can archive it and you can get them back, but it wasn't even scandal. It was just boring, actually quite boring. But it is that thing where it's like, I actually want control over my, how I am seen on the internet. And so it is very intentional about where I am. So I can give you the best content native to that platform, meaning I'm not putting my, also this goes back to the thing of, you only have so many hours in the day. And for a lot of us, it's, you only have so many seconds in the day. It's not even an hour. An hour, I would be like, woohoo, if I had a full hour. But it is that thing of how much time and resources are you going to put to try to boil the ocean to get no signal, where if you build something on Instagram very specifically, you can actually engage that audience in a meaningful way. So I knew I got off Facebook as well. So I don't have anything on Facebook. And that was my first kind of big intentionality. I deleted the blog, I deleted all my tweets, and I'm slowly kind of getting off of Twitter. And now I know that Instagram is kind of where I want to be the most, because I think my brand of storytelling is the best on Instagram. I know that I can give people the best content on that. And that actually started with trying to figure out what it was that you want, my audience wanted. And that's why every Saturday I do these goofy renovation tours with my mom, and it becomes this appointment television, and it's fun and it disappears in 24 hours. I tend to not put a lot of stuff on my grid because I think the temporariness of the stories is actually better, and that's actually proven out in data. Stories are actually where it's at. People tend to not look at the grid as much, which is really shocking. But that actually is borne out in data at BuzzFeed. So I do think it is about trying not to boil the ocean and trying to be very specific and intentional with how you're reaching your audience. And you can't do that if it's in 20 different places.
Yeah, for sure. So far, to recap some highlights, definitely
Sorry.
know where your audience is. No, that's good. I'm just for people who are like, running along, and for my brain, I like to process things in like handy little lists. So, so we want to focus in, like find where your audience is, because ultimately it's about them. So which platform are they on, right? And which tool resonates with you, right? Because that's another piece. And ideally those are going to be similar, but you probably have multiple choices. Like most audiences are in a couple of places. And so you can pick the one that feels the best to you. Sort of doing things on your own terms. So authentic to you, but also filling the need of your life right now. Like if you are in a crazy busy space in your life and you have like 3 hours a month that you can dedicate to this writing career thing that you've got going on, you can't be spending those on Twitter. You need to be writing your freaking book. So there's a certain amount of just prioritizing the thing that's actually going to leverage results for you, and something that's going to have an ongoing good impact on your life, your world, your career, all of those things.
Right.
And I think curating your own feeds is super important. So we do, like, in the Creative Academy, we do quarterly planning retreats. And so at the beginning of each quarter, we plan a 12-week year. And so we look at it as a fresh start every 12 weeks. That's and so great. you can come in, you can do your planning, and then you can review your social habits and your platforms and your content in light of those goals. Like if you have switched tracks, maybe you hopped to a different genre, maybe whatever, all that stuff, drawing people to the wrong spot. That's like building a bunch of street signs that point you to the wrong direction. Like that isn't going to help people easily find and connect with you over the right topic. So I do think that curation thing is super interesting. So if we're looking at applying, so the 80-20 rule is something I've been working with through a course I've been doing. And if we're looking at, like, in the context of social, what do you think would be a good application of that 80-20 rule? Like, what are the 20% of activities that get the most results in terms of engagement or book sales. Like you said, the grid, not so much, but Instagram stories, yes.
Stories,
So if
yeah.
we're looking at Instagram, then we're getting a lot more impact for time spent in stories. Is there anything else from other platforms that you would highlight
I
there?
think it goes back to that saying, which is like, it works if you work it, right? Which is like, if you're part of the community and you're actually experiencing Instagram as an audience person as much as somebody who creates content, you're going to get the flow of information. You're going to be part of the community. I remember it was Mark Duplass, I think, in his South by Southwest. I've taught it's his keynote at South by Southwest is incredible. But the one thing he has is if you come at something, and it's usually like a person or a community asking for a favor, you're going to get nothing. If you come at a community asking for community, you're going to get everything. And I think it is that thing, which is like, okay, I'm going to be on Instagram and I'm going to crack Instagram and I'm going to sell my book of this. It's like, no, everybody can smell that a mile away, and it's not going to be organic. It's not going to be authentic. It's go on Instagram, see how you like it. Do you like it? Follow. I follow so many foodies and gardeners and, all this kind of, and my feed and who I am looks like a real person because I'm experiencing Instagram organically. I'm actually on there because I like it. So I think it is first and foremost that 20%. A lot of that should be you experiencing the platform as a user so that you can actually know what it's like and what you like. And then you can do that thing where you can audit your own likes, because that, I think, more than anything, dollars to donuts, if you're following somebody who's just spamming you with their own stuff, you unfollowed them. And that actually is evidence that you should be taking of how you create content. Because if you're just spamming people with this, my book, my book, my book, my book, that's not a full user. But I also think that women especially, we overcorrect that. And then when we do actually have something to sell, we're like, this whole thing. It's like, no, you can actually say, I'm super proud of this. Here's a link. And this whole week is going to be book launch stuff. So strap in. It's like, I think it's actually totally fine to be like, on launch week, it's all about launch week. But I do think that it's organic to that, which is like, I always, like, when I'm in the back before a reading, I'll always post a photo of like me with my Pepto-Bismol and tea and all that kind of stuff. So it is that behind the scenes look at what a launch week looks like. And I did actually a Twitter thread about how I tried to kind of do all these things in launch week. And it was like, that's not how it works, because you're very tender during launch week and you can't actually go to the doctor and go get global entry and still be like cognizant of those things. So I do think it is about using the platform as a user and looking at it as a community, and that being your North Star for how to kind of govern yourself on there, not what can I get out of Instagram. It's like that they're going to see you coming a mile away.
Yeah. To go back to our ocean metaphor for all of it, I mean, yeah, we take a bucket out of it, but also the social platforms are like beaches. If you're a surfer, you can be like, oh, I don't see the perfect wave here. You like dipped your toes in the water, so you drive to another beach.
That's perfect.
And then you find out the wave's up over on the other one you just left, and so you run back. But like,
yes,
now nobody knows who you are because you haven't been hanging out. But if you just get in the water, you sit on your board, you talk to all the people around you, you watch, you see what the waves are doing. Eventually, the right wave's going to come along, and you're all going to surf it together.
That's
so
right.
It's very like that there are these ebbs and flows to the patterns and seasons of social media. And so it really is just like, where am I going to hang out with my friends? What feels good? So I'm with you on the Instagram. I love Instagram.
Me too.
It just feels like me taking pictures, and I think it makes me look at things a different way. Like if I'm out for my walk, I notice cool stuff in a way that I don't if I'm not thinking about framing it. Like I might not have noticed that one crocus, or like, the car driving past with the really funny sign on it when I pause to take a drink of water at the corner of the stoplight, like, stuff like that. Or I make it a mission, how many little neighborhood libraries can I find? Because there's a fairly residential area with all these little, like, I call them birdhouse libraries, but so that's fun. But just bringing it as an add-on to your daily life, not as like, here's 50 more things to put on my to-do list, and and then feeling the complete overwhelm that comes with
Agreed.
that.
Yeah, agreed. I agree.
Okay, so I am going to ask you one more question.
Woo!
Just a fun little random thing to throw in the mix. And what I'm going to ask you is, if you could get into a time machine and you could travel to any point in your writerly life, when would you go to, and what would you tell yourself?
Oof. I think there's like that thing of, God, the bottom line is I wouldn't have listened to anything I would have said anyway. Like it is that thing where it's like, I do think we learn what we learn. It's the same thing in books, that we know that our heroes and heroines, they learn what they learn when they learn it. And people have tried to tell them that before, but I think the biggest thing was when this all started, I think back in 2003, if I could just have held, I don't think I learned that I was good enough, or that the way that I told stories, or even the stories that I told, were valuable. And I still struggle with that. I think also because society tells us that stories for and about women are somehow less than and not as important. But so it's not like I'm making this out of whole cloth. I think that's absolutely what women get told. But I think just going back to the beginning and saying that the stories that I'm telling are important, and the readers who love them need these stories. And I think kind of holding on to that throughout, because I think in the beginning, maybe it was a bit better, but maybe like 2008, 2009, I would have gone back there, I think, because that's when the troubles started happening. And even, I mean, this is the story of a career, 2008, 2009, then in 2014, and then in 2015. It's this, right? So I think the time machine would have been popular with me, but going back every time I doubted myself, it would be like a daily trip.
Yeah, exactly.
Every day. You again? Gee, today I'm not doing well. I thought I was doing okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
More like the beam me up, Scotty. Like, just help me out here.
Just over and over and over again. Just this again. Yeah, you again? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, every day I would have told myself I was good enough.
Well, and you are fantastic. And I'm going to say that loud and proud. So what you can't see, there was one row of my bookshelf, which is like blocked because of the camera angle in the way it sits in my desk. But that top row is actually, and I should move it down so it's in view, but it's all books written by my friends, basically. And so Liza has a section of the cube with some beautiful, beautiful stories. And so many of whom, if you are a foodie out there and you are like drooling over the Instagram feed, there's a handful of chef characters in there also you may want to check out. So
and there's another one coming up in book 9.
Yeah. So if people want to find your books and your stuff, where should they connect with you?
I have my website, and I think it does have all of the kind of everything you need to know about all the books. And then I think I'm most active on Instagram, and Twitter. Because I think I have a luxury in that BuzzFeed has a Slack room. Like Slack is actually like a inner office chat app, and they literally have a Slack room that says great tweets. And so I literally get the curated list of the best tweets in the entire world, because that's what BuzzFeed does for a living. And so I actually can just take a tweet and then retweet it, and my feed is always going to be kind of active. So I do retweet some funny stuff just because I have access to it. But I think where I'm the most organic and the most engaged is Instagram.
All right.
Which is just my name, Liza Palmer. Yeah.
And we'll put the links in the show notes as well. So for anybody who wants to find those things easily, we'll make you a shortcut cheat sheet. Well, Liza, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy, glamorous, and exciting life to talk with us.
Okay.
And share your knowledge. That, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. And I am looking forward to hearing how people go off and apply all of those things.
Yeah.
So
a happier existence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then that's better writing. Yeah.
And the world needs more good stories. So
it's true. Yeah.
So we have listened to the amazing interview with Liza. There was so much value that I want to show you something. If you're not seeing us, because maybe you're not on YouTube, but I'm showing to the camera, like the amount of notes and the underline that I did, there is really a lot of value on what Liza just shared. I think like in the interview, like Crystal shared some of the most important takeaways, but she did that on her side of things, on different approach of things, and that is super valuable. But I also want to give you my 5 cents of what I learned about Liza's experience with social media and why the relationship between social media and the people that are using it, could it be an entrepreneur, an author, an entrepreneur, is changing. Now, there is one thing that Liza said about the social media, and she actually gave a very interesting, very powerful example from something that a person said at the social media conference, which she attended. And I think like this sentence that I'm about to say that she said really summarize everything that there is to understand of the universe of meaning about social media now in 2020, which is basically, it's more on the pitfall of social media rather than what you can gain with social media. And I think like it's an interesting perspective because you basically are underlining something that is negative of the social media. So trying to boil the ocean. So all of it, this is the sentence. People are trying to boil the ocean when we're talking about social media. And I've never really thought about it in these terms. But if you think about it, you are using maybe a person that uses every single social media on the spectrum, and the social media number increases as we're talking. TikTok was one of the new kids in the block, we can say, but again, it's just one of the results of technology, right? We have more access to technology. We have different things we can see, we can experience. Different social media are gonna sprout out of the medium video or the medium podcast or the medium can be writing things. There are so many opportunities. What she says, it's completely like a pivoting of things. She says, you can try to boil your ocean, but it's going to be impossible to do. What you can do instead is just take a bucket, analyze that social media, might be Instagram or might be YouTube, and try to boil that. So you take one bucket at a time. You try that social media and you see if the audience that is, for example, interested and or engaged to your books or your figure as an author, if they connect with you. And you can't possibly do that if you don't try different things. You get data from the experience and the experiment you get from that boiling of the, not of the ocean, but boiling of that small quantity of water. You try to get the lesson. Is your audience there? Are people interacting with you? And interacting is different from simple liking. That's another thing that Liza says, and that I think is very powerful. A person that likes your post on Instagram is not as much important as a person that is commenting it or even sharing it. The second and the third is an act of will that a person is doing to show you, I get you. I understand why you did that. That was so powerful to me because it really boils down, and I'm using this sentence a lot, but it's really the important thing. It really boils down specifically to what it is important for her nowadays. You have to be specific, you have to be committed, and you have to understand where is it the people that are interested to you. They're not everywhere or anywhere. They're just in selected places. Your job is to understand where are they, why they're following you, and that why can be discovered in several different ways. You can ask questions, for example. If you have a newsletter, ask them how they found you. Like that's something super basic, but it's something that I'm realizing just in the last few weeks. You can interact with the people that find you. You can try to understand via social media, via newsletter, why these people came to you in the first place. And I think if you can replicate that and you can find maybe an avatar of the people that loves you so much, you can find another person similar to the first one, and then to the third one. And then you can do what they call in the business, you can transform a stranger from a stranger to a super fan, which is another thing that will bear a completely different kind of theme. But this is super important. So you have to have a bucket of water. You take the bucket of water out of the ocean, you test it, you see what works, you see what doesn't.
Because you also want to make sure that you've got a bit of a creative edge, right? You don't want to be posting exactly the same thing that everybody else is posting. And you should be able to bring in your own unique bits and pieces. We talked in some of our initial episodes about what was our polymath triangle, what were the three things about each of us that makes us us. Then I think in social media, if you are not bringing those things to the table in your own way, you're wasting an opportunity, and you're probably also going to get bored, because to be honest, I was looking at, okay, what takeaways am I going to take from Liza's interview, and what are some things I want to re-examine in my own author business and my own social media channels and make changes after having that conversation. And so I went back and I was scrolling through my feeds, and I was like, yeah, you know what, actually, like, as much as I like my Instagram feed and I have lots of great author friends, and I have lots of other people in there too, but I want to do even more. So I am going to, in fact, maybe in the comments, if any of you have amazing Instagram accounts that you follow that are really interesting from different things, if they're authors, great, but if they're from other areas of life, I would love to have some of your recommendations of who we should be following. So please drop those in the comments at strategicauthorpreneur.com, or in the comment section under wherever you're listening to podcasts is fine too. But we would really like to hear your suggestions. Broaden us, educate us, help us be better people and more interesting social mediaers. That would be great. How about you? What are you going to take away and apply after listening to that? What practical actions will you take?
There was one thing that Liza said at kind of a conclusion of her speech that I thought it was very powerful and simple at the same time. She talked a lot about authenticity, how that component is king, especially if you are a storyteller, like we are authors, right? It doesn't matter if you are writing a certain genre. There are things that apply to everybody, I believe. It can be science fiction, can be fiction, can be non-fiction, can be anything. There is a way you can go about and follow trend. I think she called it like trend chasing or something like this. Mm-hmm. And you will see that in the trend, for example, on Twitter, on Facebook, when maybe an author is trying to chase a trend, every single time there will be something a bit different. That doesn't speak necessarily of what the author think. It just says something more broad about the need of maybe attention. But what she said was like following a line of yourself. Follow the line of yourself. I don't even know if that makes sense, but it's like a line. It's not a segment. It's like something that continues from one point to the other, and it's basically you. It's your, you can call it brand, you can call it yourself, or you can call it your message, you can call it your voice. But I think like being consistent with that, it's even less difficult than trying to be maybe something different or something that it's not you. Because if you're trying to do something that is not you, you have to come up with something smart at the moment. So it's like it's an exercise of killing brain cells. But if it's just you, there are people that maybe don't like you. But at the same time, you will foster trust. And I think this authenticity bit is probably one of the most important and powerful things that Liza says. And in this day and age, I think authenticity is an asset, and it's increasingly more difficult to be ourselves. We're talking about social media. It might be a reason why we're not exactly who we are, because we see other people that are maybe different or more fortunate in the other ways. But I do believe what she says on the authenticity side and not trend chasing might be the most important thing she said out of all the interview, and probably one of the things I will focus more to try to analyze what I'm doing, if I'm being authentic with the people that follow me, and I will try also to do this exercise, maybe seeing other authors, what they're doing, how do they behave, because I really think what Liza is trying to say with that sentence was like, being yourself is an asset. It's not necessarily easy to do, but that shouldn't be a reason why you don't try. So this is basically my biggest takeaway. I'm curious to know what it is yours after having the luck and the lovely things to speaking with her in real time.
Yeah, I am lucky. Also, I think the biggest thing is you really highlighted that don't boil the ocean, so narrow it down. So for me, just deciding which platforms am I just gonna give permission to go away, because I've been sort of half-assing some of the social media stuff because I don't really want to be on the platform, but you should, as an author, if you're going to run Facebook ads, you need to be on Facebook, and you need a Facebook group and all of these things, but I really don't want to. So I am giving myself permission to choose not to do the things that do not feel like the good fit for me. So that, I think, is a huge takeaway. And the authenticity piece, of course, is always a cornerstone to whatever I'm doing, because it takes too much energy to be anybody other than yourself. If we're being perfectly honest, I don't want to have to edit or think about who I'm supposed to be. I just want to be. And that is so much easier. And on that note of authenticity, guess what awaits us?
Oh,
the curious jar. It's time for an appearance.
I don't know why every single time
you
I don't know, I
just
forget.
do this thing where
No,
you
I forget. I completely, I was like, no, we're done. It's not. We're not done. We're just, this is the beginning.
Okay, so we have the jar. It is a curious jar. It is filled with questions on little rainbow papers. I am going to shuffle it up. You tell me when to stop.
5, 4, 3, 2, now.
Okay, green one today. All right.
Is it green? I see yellow. I'm like colorblind.
The light's kind of weird in here. Yeah, it's green.
What is it?
Okay. What is one important thing you learned about yourself this past year? You can't read my handwriting. Don't even worry.
Of course I can. I try to be nice. Yes, I can. Okay. Pause and think. You know what? I actually have the answer to this question.
Good.
And I'm going to tell you, like, straight away, you got to ask for help. And I'm going to elaborate on this.
Okay.
Before 2000, I would say before a few months ago, I really was a person that thought that had something figured out and he wanted just to continue from that direction. But at the same time, there was another part of me saying, you don't know what you're doing. And so I was like, I was lucky enough to attend several different events in person. The great fortune to meet a lot of authors at different stages of their career. And every one of them taught me a lesson without me asking anything. Just because I was closer to them, they taught me stuff. Maybe because I was snatching a conversation in one of the corridor, Krista, when you do that kind of stuff at the festivals or a conference or anywhere you can possibly find other authors and readers. Sometimes it was like just listening to them, giving a workshop. So I attended several, I would say a dozen of these different things in the last year. And spoiler alert, I actually met Krista in one of these events. And when I spoke to her, and then I spoke with other people, other authors, other writers, readers even, there was this voice that was saying to me, there is so much more that you know now. And you could get whatever you want if you just humble yourself and just admit you don't know what you're doing. You need help. You need to ask for coaching, mentoring, whatever you want to call it. I think one of the biggest lessons, I wouldn't say just of the last year, Crystal, I would say of the last 5, maybe 10 years, probably it's one of those things that maybe you read in books, like you need to seek the advice of people that already figure out how to build the wheel. I don't know if you exactly say it like that, but hopefully
you don't need to reinvent the wheel.
To reinvent the wheel, exactly. I think that was the most powerful realization that I had in this past year, and one of the things that hopefully I will never forget again. And now that I expose myself and I feel like super completely naked, I want you to get figuratively naked and tell us exactly,
because we're a PG-rated show,
exactly.
So we are not going too crazy.
No, not a chance. No, not a chance. So what was that what you learned?
I had a big year. I learned a lot in this last year. We had a series of unfortunate events, we'll say. We had some real ups and some real highs, but we also had some really interesting shakeups. And almost exactly a year ago, actually, our home got destroyed in a flood, sort of unexpected. A city water main burst, and we ended up living in temporary housing for most of the year, and they rebuilt our apartment, and we lost most of our stuff. So we got to sort of start fresh and decide what were we going to rebuy, what were we not. So I learned a lot about myself and what is actually important now. And, when we were standing at the edge of our apartment and the folks said, okay, you've got a few hours, you need to get anything you think you're going to want for the next year, you need to pack it up right now and take it with you, was a very interesting exercise. And when we got back to the hotel and we each dumped out our bag of what we had rescued, my husband and I had a good laugh about the things we had chosen. But, I had my laptop, I had 2 of my craft writing books off the shelf, and I had my magic quilt my mom made me for writing. And that was about it, like a pair of jeans and a couple of shirts. And, we were able to salvage a few more things the next day to take with us as well. But it was just a very interesting look at my own self and what I value and what I need to function. So that was really interesting. And I have now been able to apply that. Right before that flood, I actually got a fortune cookie that said, "You have everything you need." And that fortune cookie was pinned to a corkboard on my wall, and that fortune actually survived the flood. So it is now pinned to my current corkboard, which says, "You have everything you need," which is good. The other one I got said, "You are about to find out what really matters to you." If I'd been paying attention, I would have noticed.
The universe was talking to you.
Exactly. So those were, I think, really what I learned was that everything around you is just physical surroundings, and that you need to be able to kind of go inward for what is your home, what feels like home. How do you write through some of that stuff? And, that varies. There were good days, there were not good days, but definitely just responding to not the perfect conditions and not waiting for the perfect conditions, because otherwise life can just pass you right by. So I'd say, that was what I learned. Give myself the space and permission to shake things up a little bit and to really see the opportunity in each thing that happens. Things do not always go as we would like. And there is always an opportunity buried in the things that make us most uncomfortable in the moment. So, there you go.
Somebody got to tweet that. Social media episode. That was good. Hey, you're good.
Yeah, thanks. This is why I keep you around. You're really good for my self-esteem. Yeah. All right. So if you can see the questions are running a little low in here, folks. We are, down in the bottom third. So we could use some more questions. If you have something you would like us to answer and crack ourselves open all honestly and vulnerably in front of the world, then you are welcome to email those questions to ideas@strategicauthorpreneur.com, and we will add it to the mix. We also want to get to know all of you. So we would love for you to leave us a comment in the show notes for this episode and answer the Curious Jar question for yourself. So in case you've forgotten already, the question is, what is one important thing you learned about yourself this past year?
For show notes, links to resources we mentioned, and coupons, discounts on tools we love, visit us at strategicauthoreneur.com, subscribe to the newsletter, and each week we'll email you just one thing that we think will help you on your entrepreneur journey and a link to our latest episode.
And you'll get a gold star and 1,000,000,000, I believe, was the number from earlier.
Yes.
Bonus points in the game of life if you leave a review for us wherever you listen to this podcast. We are a shiny new podcast, so we need help. If you don't leave us reviews, nobody will know to find us. So please and thank you, do that.
Very high.
You always save the good stuff to say until I've turned off the recording.
I don't know.
1,000,000,000. Go back to the 1,000,000,000 part. That's the best.
It's not gonna be natural anymore.
Ready?
I am so ready.
Okay. No, it's not.
It's
not.
You see,
I'm just
you're
trying to
doing
trick
this.
you.
You are doing this for the very last. Like, this is not the first or the second. It's the third. That's why I stopped it, because I can't trust you anymore. I can't trust you.
It's true.
You are
I've
setting me
violated
up
your
for
trust.
failure
Oh,
every
dear.
single time. You know what's my theory?
Okay.
My theory is that you need more of that Avengers Infinity War kind of final kind of stuff. So you want me to stumble every single time, and you want me to say something very funny or very weird. That's my theory. I don't know about you. I think
That's a good conspiracy theory.
How do I do it? I don't know how I do it. Is it? I'm already trying to practice saying Authorpreneur. Go right or don't go right. Go and just fill up the well and watch Great British Bake Off and make a cup of tea and relax, because we need some of that as well.
Love it. Okay.
Woo-hoo.
That's a wrap, as they say in
That's
the show. I don't know if they do that hand motion, because I'm not.
Yeah, let's say, yeah, we can, yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.